Good morning and happy Easter, everybody. Yes, just because it's a holiday doesn't mean we don't get a meeting. Hey, Lily, my twin sister. Oh, I'm tired today. So, yes, I'm doing AA on Easter because alcoholics don't have days off. Usually, we alcoholics use the holiday as a reason to drink. So, doing a meeting on a holiday is a good idea. Anyway, I'm Sandra and I'm an alcoholic. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I know there's not going to be very many people in here because they're with family, but it's okay. Hi, Riza. Good to see you. I got your comment. Good evening yesterday. Thank you for being support to my channel. Anyways, go ahead and get into the steps. And today I will do the traditions as well. So, 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe the power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defective characters. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continue to take personal inventory and wrong, promptly admit it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Tongue-tied. Tradition 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends on AA unity. 2, for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God, as He may express Himself in our group conscious. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. 3, the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. 4, each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6, an AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facilities or outside enterprises, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8. Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9. AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10. Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. And 12. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. Hi Josh, good to see you. Okay, we're in the big book, and I always put in the description what book we're reading, what page we're on, what story we're reading. And by the way, please don't pass any judgment in the comments because we're all here for one purpose, to stop drinking or help a friend or family member to stop drinking. Anyways, so we're reading Empty on the Inside on page 512. Empty on the inside. We grew up around AA and had all the answers except when in our own life. I spent my life acting as if I knew I didn't ask teachers questions, in school they might find out I didn't know the answer, or acting as if I didn't care. I always felt as though everyone else had been given the directions of life and I had been somewhere else when God knew how to do something or you didn't. You could play the piano or you couldn't. You were a good ball player or you weren't. I don't know where I learned the attitude that it wasn't certainty in my life, and it almost killed me. The cover these okay. All good now. I knew that was gonna happen. I don't know where I learned the attitude that it wasn't alright not to know, but it was a certainty in my life, and it almost killed me. The concept of set a goal, work the goal, achieve the goal was foreign to me. You either had it or you didn't, and if you didn't, you couldn't let on. You might look bad. I never once stopped to consider that others might really have to work hard for what they had. Gradually, my attitude translated into contempt for those who didn't know. Leave it to an alcoholic to look down on someone who is successful. My father joined Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 7. Many of my childhood Friday nights were spent at open AA meetings because we couldn't afford a babysitter. I was the kid sitting over in the corner with a book. What effect did it have? I knew that being alcoholic meant you couldn't drink anymore and that you had to go to AA. As my drinking career began, I was always careful not to utter the A word in connection with my name. At my house, I would have been handed a meeting schedule. Besides, I knew that AA was all old guys that drank coffee, smoked, and ate donuts. I had been there. Looking back, I'm sure most of those old guys were barely 30. So no AA for me. That would mean not drinking. And when I drank, life changed. I was 15 the first time I got drunk. I could tell you where I was and who I was with. What I was wearing. It was an important day for me. Within a year, I was a poster child for adolescent treatment of alcoholism. My grades plunged, my friends changed, I wrecked a car, my appearance went downhill, I was suspended from school. When I first got sober, I wondered why my parents never checked me into treatment. When I remember they didn't have adolescent treatment centers when I was a teen. As a matter of fact, I still have ceramics Dad made me in the psychiatric ward because when he was drinking, they did have treatment centers. I was always ready with a promise to do better, to try harder, to apply myself to live up to my potential. Potential now there is the curse of every budding alcoholic. I managed to graduate somehow and went on to college, where I promptly flunked out. I couldn't make it to class. Hindsight has shown me two reasons for this. First, if someone else had a free period, I tagged along with them. I thought that I had to be with a friend all the time. I was afraid that if they spent any time without me, they might begin to wonder why I hang out with her anyway. They might realize they had a better time without me, and then they might tell other people. Who would tell other people and I'd be alone? Second, social conversation was a skill that I never acquired. When I met someone, I felt totally inadequate. To me, when I said, "Hi, my name is," there followed a deafening silence, as if they were thinking, so how did people have conversations anyway? How did they meet and then begin to talk as if they had known each other for years? For me, it was one more thing that it wasn't all right not to know. So I kept drinking. When I drank, it didn't matter. It's important to interject here that I love to drink. Drinking put me into the middle of life. I was a social drinker. Drinking made me extremely social. I didn't particularly like drinking with other women. I drank with the big boys. I always had a tremendous capacity for alcohol, and I learned to shoot an excellent game of pool, which made me quite popular in the local tavern scene. At one point, I even had my own motorcycle. When I read Bill's story in the big book and he said I had arrived, I knew what he meant. For 14 years, my drinking took me places I never meant to go. First, I moved south since I knew the town I grew up in was a problem. I once heard a guy remark in a meeting that there are 3 or 4 states that should just post signs on their borders. This state doesn't work either. I did the things women do. First marriage was really a one night stand that lasted 5 years. I certainly couldn't admit that I had made a mistake. We had 2 children and I wanted out. But to leave would mean taking responsibility. I just drank until he threw me out. Then it was his fault the marriage failed. At one point before moving home, I lost a job that meant a lot to me as a direct result of my drinking. For the first time, I went to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous and said, I'm an alcoholic. You trying to lick your leg off? Got the dog over here licking himself. Crazy dog. When I had gone to a meeting with my dad, I always just said, I'm with him. I called my father and told him I went to a meeting. Within a week, he mailed me a box containing a book, Alcoholics Anonymous, a tape of his AA talk, a couple of meditation books, a copy of 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, and a few other odds and ends. I think he had been saving up for the day I was willing. He's back to licking himself. So, divorced, I moved back home. Within a year, I was under arrest for child endangerment. I had left my sleeping children home alone and gone to drink. They were removed from my custody and placed with my mother. Then started my rounds of the treatment centers. I could talk a good game. After all, I had grown up with AA. I was the one the counselors asked to talk to other women who were reluctant to leave their kids long enough to go into treatment. I could give the whole speech. We can't be good mothers if we're not sober. The problem was inside I was relieved that my kids had to live with my mom. It was too hard to be a parent, but I couldn't tell people that. They might think I was a bad mom. And I was a bad mom. I was a terrible mom. No, I didn't beat them. And of course, I told them I loved them. But the message my kids got from me was, yes, I love you. Now go away. They had to be practically invisible in their own home. I had absolutely nothing to give them emotionally. All they wanted was my love and attention, and alcoholism robbed me of the ability to give it. I was empty on the inside. While I was in treatment, my dad died, and I inherited almost enough money to kill myself. I got too drunk the way I wanted to for 2.5 years. Sorry, I skipped some of that. I'm sure I was here faster because of it. Near the end, I was living in an attic apartment. The money was long gone. It was November, cold and gray. When I woke up at 5:30, it was gray outside. Was it 5:30 a.m. or 5:30 p.m.? I couldn't tell. I looked out the window, watching people. Were they going to work or coming home? I went back to sleep. When I woke again, it would either be light or dark. Opening my eyes after what seemed like hours, it was only 5:45 and gray. I was 28 years old. I finally got on my knees and asked God for help. I couldn't go on the way I was living. I had been in the apartment since August and hadn't bothered to unpack. I wasn't bathing. I couldn't answer my phone. I couldn't show up on weekends to visit my kids. So I prayed. Something made me dig through a box and I found the big book my father had sent me years earlier. I always tell new people to buy the hardcover version. For some reason, they are harder to throw away. I read Bill's story again. This time it made sense. This time I could identify. I slept holding the book like a teddy bear. I woke up feeling rested for the first time in months. And I didn't want to drink. I would love to tell you that I have been sober ever since, but that is not the case. I didn't want to drink that day, but I took no action to ensure against it. You see, I believe that we get more than one moment of grace from God, but it is up to us to seize the moment by taking action. But I hated the voice that said, you may as well drink. You know you're going to. For the next few days, every time I went to my favorite watering hole, I was surrounded by people talking about sobering up. My bartender wanted to quit drinking. The guy I was shooting pool with talked about going back to AA. Someone next to me at the bar was talking about being at the local clubhouse for AAs. I did stop drinking, sort of, for a few months, but eventually went on the bender that would end it all. By the end of 2 weeks of drinking, nobody was speaking to me, so I headed south where I was sure they all missed me. There was no homecoming parade. People barely remembered me. And by the end of the week, I was out of money. I couldn't even book a plane ticket home. I had less than $1, and I had one of those hangovers. I knew if I tried to sit in the airport bar long enough for someone to buy me a drink, it would be obvious that was my intent. And my pride couldn't bear the thought of being asked to leave. I briefly considered smuggling a little old, I briefly considered mugging a little old lady and stealing her purse. But I knew I would end up picking on the one who was still in shape. If there had been one more dollar, I might not be sober today. Once I was drinking, I always had a plan, but that day, by the grace of God, I was out of plans. I didn't have one single better idea. I called Mom and told her where I was and asked her to fly me home. She later told me she almost didn't do it, but she was afraid they'd never see me again. She deposited me at the local detox center where she told me I could go in or not, but she was done with me. I was on my own. Detox gave me the same message. I thought they should send me on to a treatment center. 30 days of hot meals and rest was sounding pretty good to me. But they told me I already knew everything treatment was going to teach me. That I should go do it and save the bed for someone who needed it. I've been sober ever since. I was finally accountable for my own recovery. I was responsible for taking action. One of my favorite games had always been making it to someone else's job to see that I got my work done. That game was over. I never expected to live to see 30. Suddenly, I was 29 and a half and showing no signs of dying anytime soon. I knew in my heart that I would live whether I drank or not, and that no matter how bad it was, it could always get worse. Some people get sober because they're afraid to die. I knew I would live, and that was far more terrifying. I had surrendered. The first night out of detox, I went to a meeting, and the woman speaking commented that alcoholism had taken her to the point where she didn't want to work and didn't want to care for her daughter. She just wanted to drink. I couldn't believe it. That was me. She became my first sponsor and I came back. The second night I sat in what I now call the new guy chair. Second row against the wall. If you sit in back, they know you're new. And if you sit in front, you might have to talk to someone. When it came time to hold hands and pray at the end of the meeting, I had no hand to hold on one side. I remember thinking I will never fit in here. And hanging my head, I felt my hand being taken. Someone in front of me had taken the time to be sure that the circle was complete. To this day, I don't know who it was, but that person is the reason I came back the next night. That person saved my life, and I kept coming back. The local clubhouse had a noon book meeting, big book meeting every day, and I went every day. Not to get sober, mind you, and certainly not to learn about what was in the book. Here was my thinking. I knew you were supposed to read your big book every day, and they went around the room reading an entire chapter, so that should count, right? This also took up nearly 30 minutes, so it was less likely that I would get called on to talk. And the meeting was at noon, which left my nights free. I figured out all of that with my teen alcoholic mind. Luckily, I forgot that God is in charge of results. I was finally taking action and my motives didn't matter. I thought I'd go through the big book once, then graduate to discussion meetings. But there was a lot of laughter in that room, so I kept going. I was not one of those people who walked into meetings and said, "Thank God I'm home." I did not particularly want what they had. I just didn't want what I had anymore. That was the humble beginning I needed. The convenience of the noon meeting meant that I went to 2 meetings every day. I had nothing else to do at night. I began to notice people there were several years of sobriety. My own laziness had thrown me in with some of the most active people in Alcoholics Anonymous. What I found out was that people who attended Big Book meetings on a regular basis tend to read the book and do what it says. When I was 2 weeks sober, a man, 9 years old, daughter was killed by a drunk driver, and 3 days later he was at a meeting saying he had to believe it wasn't for nothing, that maybe one alcoholic would get sober because of it. As I left that day, I found myself wondering what would have happened if that had been my kids or me. What would they remember about me? A feeling came over me. I know now it was gratitude, and I realized that I could call my children right then and tell them I loved them, that I could show up when I said I would, that my word could be worth something to them, that even though I might always just be mom who comes over on the weekends, I could be a good weekend mom. I had a chance to move forward with them, forging a relationship built on a foundation of God and Alcoholics Anonymous, rather than always trying to make up for the past. 1 year later, I was able to share with that man that made it hadn't been for nothing, because my life changed that day. By the time a month passed, my feet were firmly planted in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I kept coming back. I cannot begin to list all the wonderful things that have happened in my years here. My children were 4 and 6 when I got sober, and they have grown up. In AA, I brought them to open meetings, and the people there gave them what I couldn't in the early days: love and attention. Gradually, they became part of my life again, and today I have custody of my children. I remarried in Alcoholics Anonymous to a man who believes in AA the way I do. I knew we were off to a good start when he didn't get angry, that I stood him up to go on a 12-step call. We agreed to never be higher than third on each other's lists, with God always first and Alcoholics Anonymous second. He is my partner and best friend. We both sponsor several people, and our house is filled with love and laughter. Our telephone never stops ringing. We share the joy of a common solution. We have had some tough times. Our son is the third generation of AA in my family. After a suicide attempt at age 14, we found out he too was an alcoholic. After his 1 year in AA, it's hard to tell what will happen, but we trust Alcoholics Anonymous even on the days we don't trust our son. Our daughter is a beautiful, confident teenager who has found her own path to God without having to drink. She is the product of the love and faith of Alcoholics Anonymous. I still have a sponsor and a home group today. I am a member of Alcoholics Anonymous in good standing. I learned how to be a good AA member by watching good AA members and doing what they do. I learned how to have a good marriage by watching people with good marriages and doing what they do. I learned how to be a parent by watching good parents and doing what they do. And I finally have the freedom of believing that it is all right not to know. The beginning of this one, I spent my life acting as if I knew. I didn't ask teachers questions in school. They might find out I didn't know the answer. That was me, completely. Because I didn't want to have to be asked to answer a question. Number one, I grew up deaf. Almost completely deaf when I was younger. Anyways, so I couldn't hear them anyway. And I really didn't want to have to answer any questions because I was shy and, I wasn't a popular kid in school. But now when I have questions about my alcoholism, like I went to a meeting on Monday because I had questions and it was about family stuff. But you can't make amends to people that made it their mission to make your life miserable. It's not my fault. It was his fault. Thank you, Father. But I too went to Alcoholics Anonymous as a kid with my father. I didn't know what it was. I just remember it saying Alcoholics Anonymous and it was in the building and there was coffee and donuts and all kinds of stuff just like this guy did. Or this lady did. Whichever one it is. So yeah, I totally get it didn't mean anything at that point other than I was getting donuts. And like I said before, I fought becoming the alcoholic me until I was in my 30s. Screw the 29, I was a mom at that point of 2 boys and married. But I started drinking in my 30s and that was drinking more than just on a weekend or one weekend a month or whatever it was when I was in my 20s. It wasn't every day, all day. Because I knew that I could become that alcoholic that my father was. Now, alcohol was not a secretive thing when we were growing up. Making drinks and stuff was what we did. My sister and I. Well, my sisters and I. So yeah, we grew up, my twin and I at least, we grew up going to AA meeting with our father. If we were around him, we were going to a meeting, but that was only because he got caught drinking and driving. And one time really sticks out to me, but we were teenagers and I was on the phone with my father and he said something about, there was an accident with a family with kids walking down the highway and a drunk driver hit them. And I was on the phone with him and I was screaming at him. It was the day before my birthday. And I was like, how the hell can you drink and drive, you stupid idiot? Do you not realize that a family just died by one of you? I drank and drove once, never again. But that's what happens when you're drinking. You don't care what else is going on in your life other than you've got to have that alcohol. Or you have to have that drug. Whichever it is. You know? But also, like this person, I took my boys and I left them with my parents. Not because I was drinking at that point. But we separated for a while and I didn't have anywhere to take the boys, so I took them to my parents, and then we decided to work on a relationship, and then we moved in together. And yeah, so anyways, that's a whole big long story that I'm not gonna say right here. But anyways, I too got my kids back before I hit my 30s. My kids watched me drink. They watched me go all the way from being good to checked out. And it was a daily occurrence, and it went on for a long time. Until I smacked my face on whatever I smacked my face on. I quit for a year, and like this, I was thinking, okay, yeah, I can go back out and drink a year later. Stupid idea. That was the dumbest idea I ever had. Because I went right back to how I was before. Don't do it. It's not worth it. But something that gave me my willing to do the meetings here is I had 2 sponsors. One sponsor became my sponsor right after I started AA. She's been my sponsor for 10 years and a few months. So the reason she became my sponsor is, number 1, she grabbed my hand. Number 2, I called people on the list and she answered her phone. So she became my first sponsor. My second sponsor was a co-worker of mine. She became she's an elderly lady, and she became like a second mom or a third mom. And she told me to find my voice. And I didn't know what she meant for a long time. And then my sponsor that is local signed me up to do a speaker meeting. Thank you, Brandy, for getting me to do the speaker meeting. I spoke for the 10 minutes. So at that meeting, I found my voice and I started using it by telling people AA. I've given this book away to 4 people. This is my 3rd or 4th book. And I've given this one away as well. More than one. Because you need to have these books. They work. If you can't get to a meeting, read a book. But AA does work. People will say, oh, no, it doesn't, blah, blah, blah. Well, it does. You just have to do it for the right reason. And the right reason is for yourself, not for anybody else. You have to do it for you. And like I tell my sponsees, is you cannot take care of anybody else unless if you can take care of yourself. And when you're drinking, you can't even take care of yourself. So, you just need to be sober to be a better human and know what you're saying and what you're doing and who you're talking to. And I mean, There's many calls that I don't remember what I said, who I said it to. That's the alcoholic. Until I decided that I was going to get sober, and then my sister called me drunk, and I was like, don't ever call me again when you're drunk. Yeah. And then I have another family member that calls me and then wants the app, and I'm like, okay, please just read your book, watch a meeting, go to a meeting, do it for the right reason. You want it to stick, you have to do it for you, not for somebody else, you know? And I'm not saying it to be mean, I'm just like, I can't keep telling the same person over and over and over and over again. Hey, yeah, the book says I shouldn't do that. I learned that with my twin sister. And so I stopped begging people and I just give them the book. And then I go to my sponsor and say, hey, I gave so-and-so a book. Can I get another one? But that's how you help an alcoholic, is turn them to a meeting. I didn't want to say who I was. I didn't want to admit that to anybody else besides who already knew that I was an alcoholic, because I didn't want to actually think myself as that. He just flopped. He's like passed out. He's having a bad allergic reaction to something. And I don't know. The vet said they gave him a med, and it was only for 10 days, I think, something like that. But it started to clear up, and now it's back. But anyways, so AA works. You just have to want to work your program, and you do it in your own time. You work at your own pace. You don't have to answer to anybody but yourself, and that's the nice thing. You know, if you mess up, yeah, it's good to tell somebody. I've had friends come to me and say, you know, I went back out, and you know what? That's okay. You can come back. The meeting is for everybody, and it doesn't have any limitations. And definitely no judgment. Because that's a safe space to be able to talk to other people who are going through the same things. Might be a little different, but we all have the one thing in common, and that's alcohol or the narcotics, whichever. I might get flagged for saying that word, but that's fine. Hi, Ash. Sorry I didn't see you come in. I get into reading. Anyways, but I'm going to say actually first I need to read the, what's it called? Daily reflection for Easter today. So it is examination. Sorry. We ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Alcoholics Anonymous, page 86. When said sincerely, this prayer teaches me to truly unselfish and humble, for even in doing good deeds, I often used to seek approval and glory for myself. But examining my motives in all that I do, I can be of service to God and others, helping them do what they want to do. When I put God in charge of my thinking, my needless worry is examinated, and I believe He guides me throughout the day. When I eliminate thoughts of self-pity, dishonesty, and self-centeredness as soon as they enter my mind, I find peace with God, my neighbor, and myself. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. I hope you guys all have a great day. Thank you for taking a little time out of your Easter Sunday to join me here for a meeting. Doing these meetings help me as they help you. And I'm going to keep doing what I like to do. That's sharing my message of being alcohol free. I love you guys, and be safe out there. Travel safe, and remember, stay sober, and don't drink and drive. Love you guys.